This method of colouring is going to have you looking for all sorts of amazing things around the house. We need grids. This is called grid patterning. Anything with squares or holes in it is going to do a great job. We'll look at that one later. We start off with our chosen grid, and the size of the grid is going to determine the size of the holes. I have my piece of wet fabric. I'll bet you could predict that one. I'm spreading it across my grid, and I'm now going to poke that fabric into the holes of the grid using whatever will fit. It could be a finger, it could be a spoon handle, it could be a brush handle. You'll find something, I'm sure. Let's go to spoon handle. I'm going to start from the middle and work outwards, because you can see everywhere I poke, the fabric comes in. And the trick here is to keep poking in such a way that you're not pulling out what you've done before it. We need to poke that in fairly deeply, depending on the size of the grid. I'm going in about 1 centimetre, maybe a bit over on this grid. You can poke every hole, or you can go every second hole here, or you can go randomly. Whatever you do is going to determine the pattern you end up with. Oh, let's try a few fingers in there as well. Now we've finished poking the fabric into the grid, we'll just check how far it has actually gone down. Don't tip it upside down at this stage or you'll lose the lot, and that can be very frustrating. So that looks okay to me. I've chosen purple and cyan for this project, and I'm going to colour every second hole and end up with like a checkerboard pattern. The colours are open, and I'm just dabbing those colours on around the edge of the grid. We know that while there's moisture, there's movement. We also know that excess is the enemy. The fabric is wet, the colours will continue to bleed. There's no need to go down into the hole at this stage, because the colours are going to bleed down in there. And over the next 10-15 minutes, we're going to just keep an eye on it. We can always add a bit more. It's a whole lot easier than taking it off for this particular technique, because we can't get into the bottom of the holes to blot them. You can see in some of my patterns in front of me that I have used just the 2 colours. Some I've gone for just an irregular floral pattern, and they do make rather cute flowers. Let's put in some second colour. Cyan happening. The other thing we're going to watch for as these colours move is how far they actually move together, because we may also need to add just a touch more colour in those areas around the squares of the grid. Or if you're doing flowers, that's when you add little touches of green in between the two to make that look really floral. So about 20 minutes has gone by. We've given the colours time to bleed across the surface of the fabric. We've also given them time to go down into the holes if they've wanted to. Of course, there's nothing wrong with leaving the holes bare, because white in the middle of our flowers really does look quite beautiful, as you'll see on this piece here. Anyway, I'm touching these up, and I am adding colour to the middles of the flowers because I don't want them completely white on this piece. Just a little. We don't want to go into enemy territory. I have actually done the purple. a moment ago. And this is just a touch up with the cyan. Filling in the gaps. And that should be just about it. Now, to check whether we have gone into excess, we can either lay, just found a gap, a piece of fabric or a piece of paper across the top and blot the excess. Again, it needs to be fabric that accepts the water drop test well. And there we have the mop-up off that piece there. Lovely little background piece. There we go. And from there on we simply leave it to dry. So let's have a look at another few options of what can be done. We know that the size of the grid will determine the size of the pattern. So you can have everything from the tiniest little grid, which gives you a very yummy pattern. That was a random poke, that one. To a slightly bigger one. Liquid Radiance is all non-toxic. You can pull these out of your kitchen cupboard and give them a clean off and get them back in for making cakes later on. Bread crates. Fabulous. Big holes, medium size holes. Really big patterning on the big holes. Milk crates, strainers, colanders. You'll find all sorts of things that you can use as grids to poke into. Think about putting some chicken wire across a wooden frame or some gutter guard. I know you'll find all sorts that are going to do the job beautifully for you. We just let this dry and then have fun spraying, stretching and ironing. So what we've done now, I've coloured by poking first and then adding the colour. This one here shows a different option where you can colour first, and I've used a 5-finger foam brush for this colouring method. You can see the stripes there. Colour it first and then poke it. It's totally up to you, whichever you find easier and whichever way you want your pattern to be.